Hi and welcome to the Cloud Chronicles. I'm Jez back, and with me today is James Moore from Do It. He is a VP of Sales in EMEA. Today we'll be talking all things cloud, especially multi-cloud, hybrid cloud, cloud repatriation and cloud cost management. James, welcome. How are you?
I'm really great, thank you so much. And Jez, first of all, pleasure to meet you and thank you for the opportunity for your time today.
No, great, thank you. So, Do It, to make sure I get the name right, because we always get that wrong. Then we have people do say Do IT or Deutsch and things
We've
like
heard
that.
many interpretations.
Yeah,
sure,
absolutely. So Do It, what do you guys do?
Absolutely. So first of all, we support customers who are in the cloud. So everything from digital natives, SMBs, startups, but mostly companies that are savvy with the cloud and want to get capitalized on the cloud, and we help them on that journey as a co-pilot. So we help them with consulting, with support, with cost optimization through tooling, our own tooling, and also with how they purchase their cloud, so through procurement.
Cool. So obviously working with a lot of organizations who are born in the cloud, the pragmatic reality is that through M&As, through picking up new things, sometimes things aren't quite right for the cloud. You end up having a bit of a hybrid cloud scenario. Do you guys support those sort of activities as well?
No, absolutely. So I think our target market specifically is organizations that want to build on the cloud themselves. So typically they're not the organizations that want to outsource completely. They want to keep some of that, if not most of that knowledge within their team, and they want to learn through that experience working with Do It. So having said that, we absolutely have organizations that through acquisition, through legacy, and through compliance have the either requirement or already the infrastructure on-premise, and therefore looking at how do they balance both on-prem and building in the cloud and building for the future.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point, because there's lots of heat and noise and, dare I say it, religion about hybrid cloud. You know, from my perspective, I think it's very much a pragmatic reality. Like you say, things like compliance, things like, well, what if the technology performance demands low latency? Then actually sometimes cloud is not necessarily the right answer. So, working in that scenario is always something that's quite challenging. What's your views about how you help clients and how you help organizations to make those right choices?
100%. So from our perspective, we first of all employ genuinely the best engineers. And it's a very easy thing to say, and I'm sure lots of organizations say the same, but the reason I'm so confident in that is the way we measure our success is through our customer satisfaction. So we're very high customer satisfaction, 98 plus. We actually publicly state that on our website. And through our engagement, we find that, they need some support to understand what's the best way of handling either certain workloads or being compliant and navigating the complexity. And I think that's something that we see time and time again is the complexity builds when you're trying to look at that, either the hybrid element or the multi-cloud element, and how do they, again, navigate that to ensure they're delivering the business outcomes they need.
Yeah, this is one of the things I find really interesting is helping organizations to understand that there is a genuine trade-off between technology performance, business outcome, regulatory and compliance and governance, and cost, and how you can have tier 3 applications, which we should absolutely sacrifice technology performance for in favor of cost, but tier 1 business critical applications, which no, we are going to sacrifice cost for business outcome and technology performance. And getting that balance right, that cultural change, that cultural mindset and thinking, that's a real challenge. Is that something that you find is important, and what techniques have you and your organization done towards that?
Yeah, totally. So we spend a lot of time going into the detail for all scenarios, but the case example you're there, looking at particular applications or workloads and where they best suited and how to architect that to optimize for best business outcomes. So, the way we approach it is we have a very seamless engagement element. So what we don't do is statements of works, or should we say the more traditional ways of engaging with organizations. We have consulting as a service. So you subscribe to us, you get instant access to our top engineers, and then they'll walk you through, right, this is currently what we have today, and here's some of the best practice of getting the most out of what you're trying to achieve. And we lean on our 4,000 customers and the experience we've gained from working with them to show people the quickest time to market or the quickest time to value.
And what are the big trends you're seeing in that space then?
So I think It's quite diverse. As I mentioned, we have 4,000 customers, so we have everything from small startups to larger, more traditional organisations. Some of the trends we're seeing is that people want to capitalise on. I've got to say it's sort of fairly early in this conversation around generative AI, right? It's a hot topic. It's a buzzword. There's probably already a bit of fatigue around not another one talking about generative AI, but genuinely people are wanting to know, how do we prepare for the future? We know it's coming, and what does it mean for our business? So there's a lot of conversations we get involved in with regards to, right, we want to try and test and develop and understand what the impact and benefits will be. How do you do that in a seamless and cost-effective method? Because again, when you start playing with these things, it's often based with a lot of data, and manipulating that data and get the visibility using the data can escalate, and the cost can amplify quite quickly.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my view on Gen AI, which is, well, let's learn the lessons from early cloud adoption, where everyone jumped on the hype bandwagon and suddenly the costs spiraled and people didn't see the value from it. I think there is value to be had in Gen AI, but I think the business case needs to come first. For me, is the big story behind that. So, I mean, let's talk about other trends, right? So the other big thing that gets pushed around is cloud repatriation. Is that something you're seeing from your clients, that they whilst you said you have a lot of clients who are born in the cloud, but a lot of them have got legacy.
Yep.
Are you seeing them doing whole-scale cloud repatriations, or?
So in short, we would say no, right? I think, again, the nature of our customers is they are technically savvy, they're very technically astute, and they're focused already on building what is next, and they tend to be the disruptors of the marketplace. So regards to that question of should we move some of these workloads back to either our existing on-premise infrastructure, which we have sunken cost into, or even look to invest further in that capital expenditure, that on-premise infrastructure, then it's very rare we see, if any, see those sort of conversations. It's more around if there's a requirement to retain information or part workloads in on-premise equipment, then how do we get the benefits of the cloud, either from a redundancy perspective or some of the more advanced technology we can benefit from within the cloud, but then retain core critical infrastructure within on-premise infrastructure. So I think reality is each customer is slightly different, but what we're not seeing more broadly is that need to go back to what I would say is more traditional ways of working. I think time has passed now where people have truly realised the benefit, and that's again part of the way we work and our ethos. If you want customers to realise the true benefits of the cloud, I think what's prompted that conversation in part is a misunderstanding of some of the core elements of the cloud, whether it be how do I optimize to ensure that my costs are in control or in line with my business, my growth, and the expectations of my finance teams. But also, I would say the scalability and flexibility is something that on-premise equipment is very difficult to try and replicate, right? The element to burst. And if you have unforeseen circumstances, like COVID or a sudden change in the market dynamics where you need to react, or just consumer demand that you weren't expecting, be able to scale up quickly to meet those demands with minimal disruption, if any disruption, is something that, as we all know, cloud brings in buckets. So again, we're not seeing those conversations lead down, well, actually, can we move back to the cloud? If anything, it's how do we accelerate faster?
Yeah, I mean, that's commensurate with the research that I've been doing, the trends I'm seeing. Lydia Leong from Gartner, she put out a briefing note recently saying that cloud repatriation is not something they're seeing as an actual trend in the market. There are isolated instances of that, and there was questioning about whether those organizations were properly managing their cloud in the first place, or in terms of their maturity, their scale, their ability, their talent, and there's a massive talent challenge to meet as well, to do all that sort of stuff, but also about perhaps some narrative that's happening in the industry about cloud repatriation by certain organizations. But I think the other bit which is interesting, and just sort of leads me on to the next question, which is, obviously with the Broadcom acquisition of VMware, are you seeing a a greater demand for different types of cloud services as organizations want to move away from VMware? Or is that, again, noise? I mean, what's your experience there?
Yeah, I'm smiling because it's a really good question. It's something that came up quite recently with my team, in that do we need to try and create an initiative to try and support customers who were in that situation? When I challenged the team and had that conversation, their comeback was quite simple to say, James, our customers don't use VMware. Again, we are dealing with those innovative, fairly young digital organizations, and they see that as a more legacy way of working, and we just don't have that in our customer base.
Cool.
I mean, there'll be pockets, but not to a great extent.
So you don't think that's going to affect the SMB market too hard, but you think it's going to be larger, more in the enterprise market, where you're going to see VMware migrations across the savannah kind of thing?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, that's interesting. I mean, that kind of loops back onto the cost versus value conversation around cloud, and we can call it what we want: cloud economics, FinOps, cost optimization, all that whole theme. For me, it's all about business value first, and a very close second being culture change and change management, about creating an enterprise system towards addressing these things. I think also that everyone talks about cloud and FinOps synonymously. I think the trend is now breaking away from just pure cloud, actually onto consumptive IT. So generative AI, which does use elements of cloud, but there's more to it than that. SaaS as well, SaaS licensing. Is that something which you're looking at, or are you guys just still very much focused on the cloud FinOps, cloud economics side of the house?
No, absolutely. So we see two things. So first of all, customers want to get a better understanding of their cloud spend and how do they optimize. And the way that we approach that is through tooling. So we have our own SaaS cloud management platform, which allows customers to get better understanding from an analytics perspective of their current spend. We actually use intelligence through that platform to recommend where they can optimize and how do they save. And then it's the governance part, right? So the ongoing element of access and control, not to stifle innovation at all, but actually make sure that we've got the right parameters and gates in there, that we can do it in an environment that leads to success and not to either shock. And even through that point, we actually have a tool which allows anomaly detection. So with good intentions, but just a lack of whatever it may be, understanding or knowledge, and it may be some
Friday afternoon.
Well, totally. There's a multitude of reasons things can go wrong, and putting those guards in place to ensure that worst case, the right people are notified and act upon it promptly. So that's the way we help. Laid on top of that, we provide with the engineering support to architect for the future to ensure that they can invest and grow. And that's the second point, is that we want to help customers continue to grow. Again, our customers are often very fast-growing organizations, and therefore they've got to moderate or mediate the element of cost control, but also ensure that they're meeting the requirements of the business. So that's something that it is important, where it's not truly just transfixed on controlling costs, but actually where can we either save and reinvest, or be in line with actually want to ensure that we're growing our organization and launching those new features or making those new releases in time of the customer's expectations.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as an explainer for some, the reality is that 55% of all IT budgets are external purchases. And if you take half of that, that's on consumable IT, things like cloud, SaaS, Gen AI. So that's 27.5% of the entire IT budget. That's material on the CFO's free cash flow. Yeah, and if there's one thing a CFO really cares about, it's their cash flow position. So I take that's what I mean when I go about the business value part of it, of saying, well, actually, how is this affecting the value of the business? Because let's have the really honest moment. The cloud bill never actually goes down. Yes, we can take the big savings on the easy, quick win stuff, and that's down to poor discipline and all those sort of things. But when we actually do those good discipline bits, we're creating value. And therefore, the cloud bill's going to go up. And then getting towards accretive growth, again, for people who don't know what accretive growth is, it's where the rate of the cost is going up at a slower rate than the amount of sales. that's where the value starts happening, but the bill's still going up. How have you been able to articulate that to your clients and get them to understand and go on that journey? Because for me, I mean, in my experience, this has been a really, really tough challenge.
Yeah, I think, look, your bill going up is not necessarily a bad thing. I'll put that statement out there, and then what I mean by that is it's got to have the right visibility by the right people. If people have the tooling and the setup and the governance to understand where the costs are coming from and the reasons why and what it will lead to, it's not necessarily a bad thing. If people are making proactive investments for the future to grow because there's an opportunity that they want to capitalize on, then there's going to be a correlating increase in spend. So I think, again, if people have got the right visibility and understanding of where the costs are coming from, I think where the challenges lay in the past is you get to the end of the month and the bills come in and you're thinking, wow, how did we get to this point? That's not what I forecast. That's not what we have budgeted for. It's going to impact our cash flow. These are elements where you have anxiety within, the teams. And I think that's something that we try and help customers significantly in help reducing. And I think you can reduce. So we have a number of customers which have sustainably reduced their cloud costs for the future because it has to be in line with where their business is and the requirements. And we've done a lot of work around that. But I think what we also want to try and help customers do is grow their business. And I think transfixing too much on just cost control does stifle innovation. Yeah. It does limit the ability to capitalize on fast-moving markets or opportunities that you hadn't even considered unless you'd explored and had that open innovation and that mindset and culture, as you mentioned before, around testing and developing and being open to change. And I think that's something that you have to make sure you've got the balance right around adopting change and growth and cost.
Yeah, that's exactly what I mean about the business value, because if you're doing the business value bit properly, the business is going to grow.
Yep.
Yeah. So that's why I mean about the bill never actually going down. And so I find it interesting when you talk about how the bill can go down and sustainably so. I would argue, and please push back on this, that's more of an edge case. I would actually say more likely that organisations who do get a grip on their costs and they do get those cost controls and then it's cost avoidance and value creation, actually the vast majority of them will see the bill go up, but in a way that's predictable. And even though we've got a variable amount to spend on the 11 plus 1, 10 plus 2, forecasts, at least it's operating in variance, not variability.
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been surprised we've had a number of customer examples where they've, from a finance perspective, stipulated to their IT team, you need to save X amount. And that is it. You need to find this amount in savings, right? And a lot of that may be driven around the economic headwinds that we're all very aware of, cost of living, interest rates, slowdown in markets, whatever it may be. So that's something that, again, we lean into to a great extent, is to make sure that actually how do we help them find that point which is sustainable and not limiting in their services delivering to customers. But also, again, go through that exercise of, okay, what can we do to try and help you grow your organization? And that's finding that business value, as you said. What we're very focused on is that infrastructure. So we're not doing the consulting from a business perspective, but we can provide the visibility and details into making sure that their house is in order, their infrastructure is in a situation where it's delivering the expected outcomes. Then they can go away and think, right, we've got the breathing space, the head space to understand how more we can invest.
Great, thank you. So let's just wrap this up. What's your big sort of trend forecast guess for the remainder of 24, early 25?
Yeah, so I think, look, last year was a lot about cost control because of, again, the economic climate. You quoted Gartner before. There's a stat around in 2025, over 95% of new workloads will be in the cloud. They're going straight to the cloud. So I think the question around that for me is kind of for newer organizations or new workloads, not there. But I think we are now returning to growth. I think both economically, globally. We work with a lot of VCs and startups. And I think there is a bit of a bottleneck around investment at the moment. I think people are very cautious where they are investing. There's a lot more due diligence going into the investments that they make. I think there's a lot of investment going to generative AI. I think, again, it's got to make sure it's delivering results. So I think, again, through this year and the next, we'll probably see more material results of where generative AI are delivering those business outcomes and the impact it's having. I think last year it was a lot of buzz around, which AI platform and the question around what will it mean for us. I think now you'll have those innovative organizations who are demonstrating truly the value, not talking about it, but showing the impact. And I think that will draw a lot of attention, further investment, and further growth opportunity. And we're very, very excited about this year and the next. I think, our customers are growing. We're supporting more and more customers. And last year we signed a $5 billion commitment with Amazon Web Services, and we're also at Google Cloud's largest global partner. We work very closely with the vendors, and they're strategically investing in those areas as well. So we're part of that journey.
Great. Thanks very much, James. Thank you very much for your time. So that wraps up another Cloud Chronicles episode. Thanks very much for your time, and we look forward to seeing you for the next one. Take care.